So we're here in Middletown, Delaware, and we're coming out here to take a look at Fiddler's Bridge. Now, Fiddler's Bridge is a small bridge, and it spans one section of US Route 13. And the story goes that there was a local slave man who, back in the mid-1800s, was an extremely good fiddle player. And one day, this slave was beaten severely. We're not sure for what. And he ended up running away and kind of living a life of a recluse in the local area around St. George's. And he was seen at times sitting atop the bridge that used to exist here. It was an old bridge, they've built a new one, and he would be playing the fiddle. Now, it was discovered by some of the local people after this slave had fallen off of the bridge and supposedly drowned in what is Scott's Run, is what they call it. It's kind of a small creek that the bridge spans, and he had fallen off in there, and it was discovered that if you stopped and threw a dime over the bridge, that you would hear a fiddle playing, coming somewhere from the area, from the bridge. We're not sure what. So we kind of want to stop and take a look, see what we can hear, if we can hear anything other than traffic right now. But we'll take a look and see what we can find.
All right, so here we are along Fiddler's Bridge, and this is Route 13. It's not the same bridge that used to be here. Let's take a look out the side and see what we see down there. Sure enough, it's a run, Scott's Run. You can see some water down there, and I have this dime. So if the traffic stops coming by for a minute, I'm gonna throw this dime over the bridge. I'm gonna ask the fiddler to play me a song and see what happens. So here we go, let's let this last car or two clear, and fiddler, could you please, if you're here, play me a song? I don't hear anything at first. Fiddler, if you're here, could you please play for us? We'd love to hear your music. We heard it's wonderful. We're sorry about what happened to you. We'd love to hear from you if you're here. So we left Fiddler's Bridge and we came up here, pulled over in Delaware City, which is an awesome place. It's also got some ghost stories associated with it. And of course, one of the most haunted locations, or the most haunted location in Delaware City, yes, is right behind us here, which you can't see now because it's across the water, kind of camouflaged by some marsh grass, but is Fort Delaware, which is a very haunted and historic fort. But as far as Fiddler's Bridge, now I got to say it's along Route 13, and it's not the original bridge. You know, I imagine back when this happened, 13 was probably a little more than a dirt road.
Yes. And
this was probably a rickety old bridge that crossed over Scott's Run.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot has changed, and I wonder, with the renovations, with the change, has this kind of smothered out the spirits that may linger behind there.
Right.
The article, I believe, was from the 1950s, and at that point the original bridge was already gone.
Yes.
And I guess it was shortly before then that people discovered you throw a dime over the bridge, you hear the fiddle music.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I think you're probably right about that. I mean, not only was it far different from what it probably was back in that day, it was also under construction when we were going past it. So, you know, there was a car zooming past. I mean, it has to be a far different atmosphere from what it was back then when the Fiddler sat on the bridge and played. So, you know, perhaps it's just the changes of time that would kind of snuff it out. And, you know, that makes perfect sense.
Absolutely, absolutely. And as Linda said, there were a lot of cars going by.
Yes.
So the fiddle music, I don't know how prominent it is.
Yeah,
it may
how
have been
hard it
very
is.
faint.
It could have been.
You know what I mean? It may have been in the distance, and we may
Yeah.
not have been able to hear it because of the traffic.
Right.
I'd like to try it at like 3 in the morning.
Yes.
Perhaps a place we'll have to return to. But I got to say, you know, I grew up not far from that area, and I've heard the stories of Fiddler Bridge when I was younger.
Yes.
When I was in high school, a little bit after, when I was out chasing urban legends, I heard about Fiddler's Bridge, but I never knew exactly where it was.
Yeah.
But thanks to our lead researcher and her delicate research,
Yes.
she was able to find the exact location of Scott's Run
Right.
and Fiddler's Bridge that crosses over it. And I have to say, looking down into the run and looking off into the woods, it was eerie.
Yes.
If there was not
Yes.
the amount of traffic along
Right.
Route 13, it would have been a very, very eerie location.
spot, right,
You know what I
right.
mean? And it's kind of sad to see that this highway was just paved over this little run, and what
Right.
used to probably be, like I said, a small, barely a dirt road and an old rickety bridge, and
Yes.
now it's a highway.
Right.
So did that change? Did that snuff out the paranormal activity?
Yeah.
I don't know. But a pretty cool place, and you know, I wouldn't recommend stopping there because it can be dangerous. It's a highway. We had to pull over, put our 4-ways on,
Yes.
and you know, depending on what time of night it is, you got to make sure, you know, people can see you.
Right.
Because you don't want to get hit by a car and stuff like that. But awesome place. We're going to venture off now down Route 9, going up towards Old Newcastle, and Route 9 is a road that a lesser known story. And this is a road I've traveled down before in search of this urban legend, and I haven't seen it, but supposedly a man on horse, a man in colonial attire on horseback, will come riding alongside of your car as you're driving down Route 9.
Cool. That
So
sounds
I don't know if anyone knows about that story. I know a couple people do,
Yeah.
a couple locals. But we're going to drive down there and check it out, and maybe we'll show you some video of Route 9 as we go along, and
Okay.
just stop and do a quick debrief of Route 9
Right.
before we go. So at the beginning of Route 9, or where we got on Route 9 anyways, right down here by the refinery in Delaware City. So it's well lit, not eerie at all. But as soon as we leave this area of the refinery, it's gonna get pretty creepy. Believe you me. Like I said, I've driven along this road before, and it's a pretty creepy road.
Nice. We like creepy.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. And it's kind of the place where you would expect to see a ghost.
Cool.
It does. You kind of get that eerie feeling, you know?
Now, what do you think are the origins of this soldier or this colonial man on horseback? Is there any theory to that, or?
I have not heard any theory of it. I haven't seen anything about it online. The only thing I've heard about it is stories from locals.
Right.
Because me being a local, you know, I heard the stories when I was younger of people told me about it. And when we were up here doing the Pokemon Go and the Paranormal episode up in Old Newcastle, the guy up there was also familiar with it.
Oh, okay.
So it's probably just something that's known amongst locals.
Right.
But I imagine he was probably a traveler, or you know, maybe he was a local. Maybe he lived up in Old Newcastle.
Right.
You know, because that was a very colonial town, and for whatever reason, this was probably the route that he took.
Right.
Wherever he was going. I don't know if he was killed along the route. I don't know anything about him. Just that people have seen him, and it's all white.
Huh.
Him and the horse, they're all white when they're seen along the side of the road.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So as you can see, when we start to get away from that oil refinery down there, Route 9 starts to get somewhat more desolate. On either side of us, there's marsh grass and woods. So it's a fairly creepy road at this point, and it gets a little more creepy as we get along it further up towards Old Newcastle. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Route 9 brought us up here to Old Newcastle, which is another very haunted colonial city. and perhaps where the rider on horseback came from.
Could be. Could be. You know, it was very eerie down that section of road that we were on, and it's more likely that it would be seen in a place like that, as opposed to in a little town or a city like that, like what we're in right now. So I'm sure that we probably passed the location where this horseback rider has been seen. But it does make me wonder under what conditions this guy was seen. Was it on a particular day? Was it in a particular month that he was seen? Was it cold? Was it hot? There's a lot of conditions, environmental conditions, that could play a factor when you're talking about something like a residual haunting, which this most likely is.
Absolutely.
So, seeing as how it's a guy on a horseback. So,
Right. It most definitely is residual haunting. And,
yes.
and I don't recall hearing any details other than people, just travelers going down Route 9,
Right.
report seeing a man on horseback, all white,
Yes.
riding alongside of them.
Right.
Riding alongside their car. And from what I heard, this isn't like a trot. This guy is riding with a purpose.
Really?
Like like they'll be driving, what was it, 35, 40 miles an
Yeah,
hour
yeah.
down Route 9, and they'll look over, and just alongside of the marsh grass, they'll just see this thing flying, like galloping at full speed
Yeah.
alongside of their car, and then just kind of fade off into the night.
Well, and that would make a lot of sense, because a lot of times we theorize that a residual haunting is caused by somebody that is undergoing a lot of emotion. There's a lot of emotion, or there's some sort of tragic event, which would give him good reason to ride like the wind. You know, perhaps a sick child, perhaps somebody dying in the family, or just some other purpose why he had to get to his destination quickly, and it may have been a life-threatening situation that he was in.
So things to consider as we look into this, and if we do a little more research into it. Okay, but my question would be a couple questions.
Right.
For one, he's colonial.
Yes.
All right. So this was back in the probably maybe early 1800s.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Now, if he was going to get a doctor or something like that, I would wonder why he was riding out of town. You know, it would seem like he was maybe taking a message out of town, maybe a time of war.
I don't know.
You know, I know we mentioned last time we were up here doing the Pokemon Go video, there were some battles that took place in the early days, right out here around Battery Park.
Right.
I forget who all was involved, but perhaps he was going to the next city to carry news or something like that.
He could have been coming directly into Newcastle. He could have been coming up the route that we just took, up here into Newcastle.
That could be.
You know, this is known to be a colonial town, so it was probably one of the more well-established places, and it makes sense that there would be a lot of very old houses along the route that we took, because it's right there on the water.
Right.
It would be a perfect place for there to be some old houses out there.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
Perhaps he was coming into Newcastle. You never know.
Never know. But there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, the Ghost Rider of Route 9.
Yep.
I don't think that legend has been named. If not, I just named it. It is now. So until next time, thank you for joining us. Don't forget to subscribe. Yes. I'm Jeff.
I'm Linda.
And there's much more to see in the dark.